Hello, everyone. Welcome. I hope you're all having a wonderful day. I'm here for Spellbinders today, and I'm going to show you their clear stamp of the month for April. This one is called Around the Bend, and it does coordinate with the large die of the month as well as the hot foil glimmer of the month. But in this video, I'm going to show you some ideas of how to use it just by itself without the coordinating club kits. I'm going to show you a really fun technique called over the edge stamping. This stamp set is good for many occasions. You got happy birthday, hello, and thank you. And it's nice because they just fit in the bend of the stamp. I'm going to be using their Barely Peach cardstock. This is one of my favorites of their new line of cardstocks. It's just subtle and beautiful. So I'm going to start out by stamping the vine. And I put it in my mini MISTI just so I could stamp it twice. I decided to use some dark chocolate brown ink. This is called Fallen Leaves. I started out stamping it with black, but I changed my mind. I thought a brown ink would look pretty on this. And I'm going to do 2 panels exactly the same, and I'll show you why here in just a minute. Okay, now for a fun part. We're going to play with a few Distress Oxide inks and stamp the little flowers and buds that go on this vine. We'll start out with Kitsch Flamingo. I'm just going to use an acrylic block. Distress oxides are great to use on colored cardstocks because they sit on top of the paper. They won't soak in and kind of fade. These are going to be bright and bold. These are pretty easy to line up and they're very forgiving. The way I did it is I lined them up with the twigs at the bottom of the stamp, and then the rest just naturally fall into place. So I'm going to skip 2 and stamp again with this ink. And there are 3 different stamps that you can stamp on these vines. They're so much fun. So I'll stamp one more time. And then I'm going to change out the stamp. So we'll use some ripe persimmon next. This is just such a pretty orange color. I'll stamp this one out one more time. And of course, you could do this in your stamp positioner if you'd like, but I found it to be really easy just using an acrylic block. Okay, my next color is Wilted Violet, and we're going to stamp the little buds or berries or whatever you want them to be. And we'll just line up the bottoms, and the rest just fall into place. So much fun. And we'll stamp one more time, and then we're going to put this back in the mini MISTI and stamp out another vine. But here's a close-up look at that. Isn't that fun? So I moved my vine stamp so it'll stamp lower or beneath the first one. If you have a larger MISTI, you could just shift the paper, and I do this on the next one. But this one I was just trying to figure out what I wanted to do with this card. This is going to be a thank you card, so I'm going to put the thank you sentiment just in the curve of the vine. And I'm going to stamp this out with the Kitsch Flamingo, the pink ink. And I'm doing the exact same things on both panels. Or is this, I'm sorry, this is Picked Raspberries, a little bit darker than the Kitsch Flamingo. I do stamp it out a couple of times just to get a nice dark impression. Here they both are, and I'm going to cut a circle using a Spellbinders circle die out of one of the panels. I popped up the circle with some foam adhesive, and I'm going to put this down right over the first stamping. And it just gives you a lovely continuation of the pattern. I just think it looks so beautiful. I'm going to cut this panel down just a little bit so I can mat it with another piece of cardstock. I thought I'd add some pretty clear beads to this. And I should have done this after I put the card together. That's all right. I just wanted to see what this would look like. I wasn't sure whether I was going to add beads or not. I'm using a little bit of their new precision glue. And I'm really enjoying using this because it has such a thin nozzle at the top. Now let's attach the main panel onto this piece of Wildberry cardstock from Spellbinders. Almost looks red, but it's a really hot pink. It's really pretty. I'll center that, and then I can just put it on my white card base. And I'm just putting the glue on the card base this time. Once I had this on the card base, I felt like it needed something more, just a little something more. So I pulled out some dark pink and white baker's twine. I'm going to tie a bow at the top of this card. You'll be able to see it on the inside of the card, but that's all right. I think it's a cute touch. So I'll cut this off, and then I can tie a bow over at the side. I used my reverse tweezers to pinch it for me so that I could tie a knot, and then I'm tying a bow. I'll trim this down, and I like to use a micro dot under the bow just to keep it really in place. And here's a close-up look at the finished card. Okay, card number 2, we're using some banana cream cardstock, and this one's going to be a birthday card. We're going to use the second stamp, the second big stamp in this set with all of the darling candles. This time I'm inking it up with black VersaFine ink. And this panel is 5.5 by 4.25, and I do end up cutting this one down just by 1/8 of an inch on each side. And then I just shift my paper up. I'm using my bigger Mini Misty this time. It's a lot easier. And I can just shift my paper up and stamp again. And then I'll do this one more time on another panel. But before I do that, I will pour over some clear embossing powder. I made sure to use my anti-static powder first so that it doesn't stick to where it's not wanted. And then I allow my heat tool to warm up for about a minute before I bring it to the paper. The reason I'm heat embossing this time is because I'm going to blend some Distress Oxide ink over this panel. And this will protect the lines, and I'll be able to buff the ink off of the candles. The sentiment's going to say, "Happy birthday." I'll use anti-static powder again first, and then more VersaFine Onyx black ink. I just love how they fit in the curve of the candles. It's so cute. So let's heat emboss this with some more clear embossing powder. And this melts really quickly because my heat tool's already warmed up. I did this process with the second panel as well. Before I cut these out, I'm going to use a little bit of Festive Berries at the bottom. I like Festive Berries because it's kind of a mix between pink and red. And then I'm using some worn lipstick above this just to kind of fade it out into the yellow cardstock. And I'll come back in with another layer. I put that Festive Berries down thicker at the bottom. And I just love those 3 colors together. And then I can just buff off the lines so that the Distress Oxide ink doesn't obscure them. Okay, I'm using a larger Spellbinders circle die this time. I'll run this through my die cut machine and cut this out. I'm going to pop it up again with foam adhesive. I think the magic comes when you do raise it up a little bit. But before I do that, let's add a little more Festive Berries at the bottom of this just to make it really pop. And then I can adhere this right over the bottom panel. I'm just trying to line up those candles perfectly. I went ahead and colored them in with some Copic markers, and I just colored right over the Distress Oxide ink. Now let's put this card together. I'm using a piece of, this is called beeswax cardstock. I'll put this right down onto the white card base. And then I'm going to use my dot liner again. It was just handy on the desk. You can use glue or dot liner, whichever you'd like. I'm just trying to be careful so I don't bend it. Then we'll center this on the card. Like I did with the first card, I am going to add another bow. This is going to be light pink and white baker's twine. And we'll do the same thing. We're just going to put it on the inside of the card and tie the bow at the top. I recently bought some scissors from the Spellbinders shop. It was pretty lime green, and they're the long blade scissors. I just have scissor problems at my house. My kids always take my scissors and lose them or ruin them. So I thought it was time to buy another pair. Okay, we'll tie another little bow. And then I can just trim off the ends. These scissors just cut through the thread very easily. Some of my scissors don't cut through thread, just paper. And then I cut the micro dot in half just to make it a little bit smaller. I don't need the whole thing. And I'll just put it under the knot of the bow to secure it again. Of course, I'm going to add some more. These are called confetti pieces on this panel. I like all of these bright colors. And that's it for card number 2. And again, this is called Around the Bend Clear Photopolymer Stamp Set from Spellbinders. There's so many fun things you could do with this one. And here is a close-up look. I'll have all of the links to the products I use listed below. And as always, thanks so much for watching, and I'll be back again soon with another video. Here's the first card so you can see both of them together. Have a wonderful crafty day, everyone. Bye.